You are at Lake Rant, where I rant about whatever my $10 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by being one of those. This one's for Languid Landscape Lad, who says, rant about the movie Parasite, a South Korean film directed by Bong Joon-ho that came out last year. It should be available to rent or buy by mid-January, aka pirated. So I watched this about a week ago, just in time to watch it win the Academy Award for Best Picture. And, Jesus, I thought it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. I had seen The Host from Bong Joon-ho before, and I watched this with May, who had seen Snowpiercer, but I haven't. So we had a little bit of an inclination as to what we might get out of it. But I was really impressed with how tight this movie was compared to The Host, how it still had that same, like, you know, mood whiplash and really kooky, bizarre concepts in it, but while, you know, never feeling like it was going in a, like, totally off course, or like you were like, what the fuck is the movie I'm watching at this point? But it does kind of wrap up rather suddenly. I was shocked by how quickly the end came, how short the resolution was, and, you know, maybe it's just because of the fact that, you know, I was attached to these characters and sort of just, you know, getting such a vague idea of where they were going to end up. I mean, first of all, I guess spoilers for Parasite. This is not a recommendation video. You should watch the fucking movie. But it won the Academy Award. Everybody's calling it the best movie of the decade and shit like that. So, you know, go watch it. But spoilers from here on out. So, in the end, the sister gets killed, and that was a big sad, because she was really hot and cool, and the scene where she smokes on the toilet when the house is flooding is Evan. And, yeah, so I think part of it was, like, the suddenness of that made the ending, like, hard to, like, fully process in the moment, as it was just like, oh shit, like, you know, she's dead? Fuck, and he's just trapped in the house still, I guess, but it's under new ownership, and he's just, like, you know, crawls out every once in a while to get food, putting his life at risk. You've got the son is planning to eventually buy the house. And I guess it was implied that he was becoming a real estate agent. Because I was a little unclear at the end, like, what was his plan? Because sort of the main theme of this movie, beyond the parasitic relationship of the rich and the poor, how they feed off of one another in these ways, how the problem faced by these lower class people is the lack of a plan, the lack of an ability to you know, to have long-term success because of the fact that you have so many setbacks, basically. So when you have money, and this is exemplified through, you know, very powerful iconography in the film, particularly of this long setup of a scene where the rich family has a son who is going to camp out in the yard in what looks like a tent that you could buy at Target. That they're all, oh, we got it from America, so it's like super well made, you know. But like, the kid goes outside and sleeps in this tent during a, like, typhoon, basically. But it seems to be perfectly fine. He doesn't get wet. The tent is fine. He's just out in the yard. They live up on this massive hill. You know, he's perfectly fine through the storm. But meanwhile, the family who is trapped in the rich people's house, you know, they go back home to find their house completely flooded, and their lives are basically destroyed, except for the fact that they still work for this rich family and have an opportunity to, I don't know, maybe take advantage of that. But the sheer level of disconnect between the results of this storm for each of these groups is what leads to the violent conclusion. And so, you know, just the idea that if you have this kind of money, you can protect your children so easily that you can let them just go outside in a typhoon and they will be fine. Whereas meanwhile, for the poor, even the actual inside of their house is dangerous because of how easily it can be ruined, you know? So the dad explains to his son, like, you know, there's no point in having a plan because things will always go wrong. You know, your plan will always go awry. You're always going to get interrupted. So it's better to just wing it and you know, live on the fly and sort of, like, come up with all your ideas in the moment, which is what we'd seen him doing all throughout the start of the movie. You know, there's a part where they're spraying pesticides through the streets, so they open up, they leave the windows open so that the pesticide will swarm and, you know, will fill the house, which of course ironically, you know, later it's water and it's not good, but which is a great setup and payoff. But like the idea that he would do that, I mean, speaking personally as somebody who is not much of a planner and is very much a come up with things in the moment kind of thinker, I personally know how much it leads to problems when you just don't account for things that could go wrong, and that causes things to go worse, you know? So, like, their house flooded, but it was partially their fault they left the fucking windows open, you know? Like, it's obvious that this is a problem they should be prepared for regularly, but and I mean, granted, even when it seemed like once they had the windows closed, I think they had gotten the windows closed. I'm not even sure, but the house continued to flood. I'm not sure how much of it is because they left the windows open, but like the point is that it's the oversight, it's the lack of forethought that, you know, puts them in these predicaments where, you know, and then finally, of course, in the end, the lack of a plan when something crazy happens and the dad just doesn't know what to do because his anger is so directionless. Like, he sees the guy coming out and stabbing people and his own daughter gets stabbed, but he ends up stabbing the dad, the rich dad, just because he hates him so fucking much, and he's in this heat of fury and like not really thinking ahead and like just makes this crazy decision basically. So, you know, in the end, he couldn't protect his family because he was in such a bizarre, unplanned predicament. You know, he hadn't done a good enough job of tying up the other people. Like, everything just got out of hand because nothing was planned ahead. And, you know, you can only go so far on bullshit artistry and, you know, and confidence. There has to be some level of planning. So, some level of forethought. And that's what our main character, our son, is going to do in the end. He's like, I'm going to have a plan, I'm going to get you out of that fucking house, you know. So we can, it's fine that it's left up to our imagination whether or not he does that, you know, but I just wished it was more clear what his plan was, that we got to like see him sit aside and make a plan. I don't know if the plan is just be real estate agent, question mark, profit. You know, I guess he just kind of realized that if he was good enough to get into these people's house, then he's good enough to, you know, survive other circumstances. The girl told him, like, when he asked her, do you think I belong here? And she's like, yeah. It's like, unlike the other members of the family who, you know, their scent is complained about because, you know, they're older, they've been in that environment for so long, they don't know how to change, and it's seeped into who they are. But this young guy has a chance to try to do something different and escape from that by, you know, finding a tunnel through these rich people in their world, I guess. So that was kind of how I felt about it. I thought it was pretty fucking solid. Great dialogue, fun characters, great comedy, great just again, very tightly written. It felt like what I wished Knives Out was. Like, that movie was like a shitty version of this one. So, not that it was shitty, just that in comparison it's shitty. So, yeah, good movie.